if you want to have children and you want to know the best possible times in your menstrual cycle to try for a baby, then this is the video for you. You just hit jackpot. You get the information that you need in order to know when is the best time for you to try for a baby. But then I'm like, okay, does this mean I have to go to the hospital and get the surgery done? You know what's wrong with me exactly? But at some point, it now just crossed my mind that I've been hearing about ovulation pain, and I looked at my cycle and realized that it was about the middle of my cycle. I'm like, oh, okay, this could actually be it. Well, hey there, you are welcome back to my channel. If you are a returning subscriber, I am excited, I am stoked, I am so happy to have you back here. And if this is your first time here, welcome to the family, welcome to the place where you get health information that will help you make better health choices for yourself, for your family, and for your village people. And if this is something you're interested in, then definitely keep watching. So children are a source of joy, a source of warmth, a source of happiness to our lives, and many people want to have children. Some people may not want to have children, and that is okay, that is their choice. But if you want to have children and you want to know the best possible times in your menstrual cycle to try for a baby, then this is the video for you. You just hit jackpot. You get the information that you need in order to know when is the best time for you to try for a baby. So we'll just start with a brief revision of the female reproductive anatomy. So usually women have 2 ovaries on either side of their lower belly area, and then 2 fallopian tubes, 1 womb, and a vagina. So usually the ovary is the place where the egg gets released from, and then it travels down the fallopian tubes, and then from the fallopian tube into the womb, where if it meets a sperm, it gets fertilized and implantation takes place. And then after about 9 months, after the baby has fully formed, the baby can now come out through the cervix. The cervix is the neck of the womb, and then from there into the vagina, and then out of the woman's body. This is except she's having a cesarean section, in which case the baby will be born through her lower belly area. So a menstrual cycle usually begins on the first day of a menstrual period. Many books and many materials talk about a menstrual cycle lasting 28 days. This is correct. However, that is not the case for everybody else, because as human beings, there's a wide range of what is normal. For example, I could be a short person and I'm normal, I'm okay. You could be a tall person and you are also normal, and then you could be average height as well, and you are normal too. So we have to give room for all of these variations, as human beings. So in this case now, concerning menstrual cycles, if you have a cycle that is not 28 days, then you are still okay depending on how long it lasts. So what is usually talked about is 21 to 35 days. So if your menstrual cycle falls within this range of 21 days to 35 days, then that's okay. You don't have to have a 28-day menstrual cycle, or feel bad or complain and say your cycle is not regular because it's 34 days or it's 33 days or something of the sort. So the first day of a menstrual cycle is the first day that you see your period during that cycle. And so you could see your period for maybe 4 days, for example. So the first 4 days of the cycle, that's like the bleeding phase, so you bleed during that period. And then over about the middle of the menstrual cycle, that's when ovulation occurs, and that's when an egg gets released from the ovary, travels through the fallopian tube towards the womb, and then if it meets the sperm there, it could get fertilized. However, if it doesn't, the egg no longer becomes viable, the body deals with it the way it wants to, and the later part of the menstrual cycle now occurs, that now culminates with the beginning of a new menstrual cycle. So if you have, let's say you have a 28-day menstrual cycle, the first day of the menstrual cycle is the first day that you bleed, and then the last day of the menstrual cycle is the day before the new bleed occurs. So generally, if we're talking about the middle of a menstrual cycle, many books will usually say on the 14th day of the menstrual cycle. However, we found out that it doesn't have to be the 14th day of the menstrual cycle. The first half of the menstrual cycle usually is the part that varies from woman to woman. So if somebody has, for example, a 28-day menstrual cycle, she could be ovulating on the 14th day of the cycle. If another woman has a 35-day menstrual cycle, the part of the menstrual cycle that is usually tends towards a more fixed duration is the second half of the menstrual cycle. So if a woman has a 35-day menstrual cycle, for example, her ovulation will usually occur 14 days before the end of the menstrual cycle. So if we subtract 14 from 34, that's 21. So we know that if we do this, her ovulation day will be the 21st day of her menstrual cycle. And let's do the same example too for somebody who has a 30-day menstrual cycle. If you have a 30-day menstrual cycle, 30 minus 14 will give you 16 days. So you will usually be ovulating about the 16th day of your menstrual cycle. So what all of this means is that in order to study your body to know when ovulation occurs, you need to be familiar with the patterns in your body. You need to have kept a record to know, okay, this is the average length of my cycle duration, this is what happens. You can do that over 3-4 months, and then you get to have an idea of what usually occurs, and this can help you plan out whatever things you want to do as regards you're having a baby. So around the time when the egg is released from the ovaries, the egg usually is viable for about 24 hours. That's about just 1 day. So during that period, a sperm has to get to that egg in order to fertilize it. However, sperms usually last about 5 days in a woman's body. So if, for example, you ovulate on the 14th day of your menstrual cycle, it is possible that a sperm cell that entered your body from the 9th day of your menstrual cycle, could be in your body long enough to fertilize an egg by the 14th day of your menstrual cycle. But the egg is usually viable for just 1 day, and then the sperms last longer. So if you have sexual intercourse on the 9th day of your menstrual cycle, and you ovulate on the 14th day, you could get pregnant. And if you have sexual intercourse on the 14th day of your menstrual cycle, you could also get pregnant as well. So let's dive right into the different ways that you can learn whether your body is ovulating. So the first method will be by menstrual charting, which is something that we just talked about right now. So you get to know what your average cycle length is, and then subtract 14 from that in order to know what day of your menstrual cycle you should be ovulating on. So that's sort of straightforward. It's kind of simple. I'd like to know what the average length of your menstrual cycle is. If you'd be willing to do this, just write a number in the comment section so that I have an idea of what average menstrual cycle lengths my viewers have. So the next thing we'll talk about is cervical mucus, which then now translates into vaginal discharge. That's what you see on the outside of your body. So this cervical mucus usually changes its consistency and its color throughout the menstrual cycle. So some of the time when you're not ovulating, it could be whitish and not very elastic. But when you're ovulating, it's usually clear in color. You can't actually say it is white or something. So it usually has like a more of a clear color, and then the consistency is kind of stretchy, like the white of an egg. So if you experience that around the middle of your menstrual cycle, then this is a sign that you'll be ovulating about that period. So when you pull off your underwear, you could find some discharge in the crotch of your panties, and so you touch this discharge, and then you try to spread it apart. If it tends to be somewhat stretchy, this could be indicative that you have ovulated. And if it's whitish and somewhat clumpy, then it's not a sign of ovulation. Something else that can tell you about whether or not you're ovulating is something called Midcycle. Don't be fazed by the name of it. It just means mid-cycle pain. So some people, about the time when they're ovulating, when the egg is being released from the ovary, they could actually feel pain in their lower belly. So at one time, because you have 2 ovaries usually, one on your left and one on your right, this pain could vary to either side of your abdomen at different menstrual cycles. So at one time you could have it on the right side of your belly, at another time it could be on the left side of your belly. So I'd like to tell a story. Like when I was in school, I think I've been having periods for maybe 5 years or more, thereabouts, and I'd learned about all of this stuff, metal schmears and mid-cycle pain and all of this kind of stuff, but it hadn't happened to me. So on one day, I can actually remember that day, I was having this pain in my lower belly area around the right side, and I was thinking, what could be causing this? You know how as medical students, when you learn something, you're trying to apply it to your body. So I was thinking, okay, I know that the appendix is on the right side of the belly and right lower side of the belly actually, and it could actually cause a pain that's similar to this. But then I'm like, okay, does this mean I have to go to the hospital and get the surgery done? What's wrong with me exactly? But at some point, it now just crossed my mind that I've been hearing about ovulation pain, and I looked at my cycle and realized that it was about the middle of my cycle. I'm like, oh, okay, this could actually be it. So that pain lasted about maybe like a few hours to a day or so, and then it went away. And since then, I've had like that sort of pain at different menstrual cycles. So I don't feel it every time, but sometimes I feel it on the left or on the right side, and it could be indicative too that you're ovulating about that period. A third thing too is an increase in libido. So it is possible that about the time when you are ovulating, you could actually have like an increased sex drive, an increased desire to be intimate, physically intimate with your partner. So this could also tell you or give you a pointer that your body is probably wanting to have a baby this period. You know, for animals like dogs, for example, around the time when the dog is ovulating, she usually goes into heat. So it's almost like she wants to have sexual relations with any male dog that is around her. So we are not like lower animals like dogs. We are, you know, higher animals. But you know, some of these could also happen too in female people who are ovulating. So it is possible that about the middle of your cycle, when you're ovulating, you could have an increased desire to have physical relations with your partner. Another thing that could be indicative of ovulation is something like a light spotting or a sort of colored discharge. So some of the time during ovulation, there could be just a little bit of a bleed, and then when then it now travels down the reproductive pathway and then comes out to your vagina, you could actually have like a vaginal discharge that is either reddish or brownish since it will be old blood, and then it will be reddish or brownish, and this could be indicative that okay, so maybe there could have been a release of an egg from your ovary about that period. Another thing too that can occur will be like changes in your basal body temperature. So as warm-blooded animals, our bodies are usually always warm, but there could be variations in the temperature of our bodies. So it's encouraged that women who want to have a baby, you know, learn what their own normal temperature patterns will be. So basically, you get a thermometer, and in the mornings, immediately you wake up, before you even put a foot out of your bed, you check your body temperature and then have a recording of that. So usually you find out that for most of your menstrual cycle, you know, most of the time you usually have like values that tend towards a particular number, but around the middle of your menstrual cycle there could be an increase in your body temperature that could be indicative that ovulation has occurred around this period. So that's also a very, very good pointer that can tell you that ovulation has occurred or that it will soon occur. Something else that could also occur about the period of ovulation could be like increased breastfulness. So it is possible that about the middle of your menstrual cycle, you could feel like your breasts are bigger, that they feel fuller than they usually would, and then your nipples could feel somewhat tender, almost painful, almost like, you know, with every contact with them, you know, you experience some pain. So if you experience this could be a pointer that, you know, you could be ovulating about that period. Some other people experience bloating too, so not just fullness in the breast, they could feel like the rest of their body feels somewhat fuller than it usually is. So this could be indicative that ovulation is taking place about that period too. The next one actually makes me laugh just a little bit. But some women have actually said that they experience an increased sense of smell about the middle of their menstrual cycles. So if you have this heightened sense of smell about the middle of your menstrual cycle, it is possible that you could be ovulating about that period. So the cervix is the part of the womb it's like the neck of the womb that projects into the vagina. So there could be changes in the cervix at different times of the menstrual cycle. In medicine, when we talk about consistency in medicine, we talk about something being as hard as your forehead, as firm as your nose, and as soft as your lip. So it is possible that about the time when you are not ovulating, you know, most of the time during the menstrual cycle, you know, the cervix could feel firmer, could feel longer, and it could feel, you know, somewhat lower in the vagina than around the time when you're ovulating. When the cervix feels somewhat softer, it could also feel like higher up in the vagina, and it could feel as if the cervical mouth may be a little bit open, you know, so that sperm cells can climb up there and fertilize that egg. Some people could also experience things like changes in their appetites, changes in their mood about that period, because, you know, hormones are like chemicals that play around in the body and cause different things, you know, in the body. So it is possible that your mood could change that period, and then your appetites, things that you want to eat, you know, could also change during that period as well. And some people could also experience nausea and vomiting. Nausea is like the feeling like you want to vomit, and then, you know, headaches as well could occur. And then lastly, there are some kits called Ovulation Predictor kits. So as I said, hormones like increase and reduce at different times throughout the menstrual cycle. So LH, called luteinizing hormone, is the hormone that's usually produced around the time when you ovulate. So the hormone levels usually begin to rise about 10 to 12 hours before ovulation, dip about 14 to 27 hours after ovulation. So if you do a urine dipstick testing for these increased levels of luteinizing hormone, it is possible that you could get an increase that could tell you that, okay, so ovulation has or is likely occurring during this menstrual cycle. So maybe you might want to take advantage of that opportunity to have sexual intercourse with your partner so that you could get pregnant. I hope that you've learned something from this video, and that very soon I get to hear good news about how you become pregnant and how you now have your own baby. And if you like this video, please give it a like. If you would like to see more content from me, please subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Have a beautiful day. Bye.